From Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back to The Grouch and the Brainstorm. This is going to be a special episode 25. And Jill had actually asked a question on the air right before we started recording. So I had to start over. So it's going to be a little off kilter. That's okay. Because you can let Billy stay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm Mike, and I'm here today with Matt.
Hey, guys.
And Jill.
Hey.
And we have a special guest, and this is our guest on the 25th episode, and she's going to talk about her recovery, and we're just going to prod her along a little bit. But, Matt, you want to introduce her?
Yeah, well, I'm going to let her introduce herself, but this is our buddy Jane and I'll let her kind of make an introduction herself.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jane Rowell, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Jane.
Been sober since February 24th of 2000, and it's by the grace of God for sure.
2000.
That's 3 days before I turned 27 years old.
I was younger than that.
I don't know where I was at 2000.
Brentwood, maybe.
I wasn't doing so well.
I'm not judging. I may have been myself. I don't remember now.
I wasn't doing so well either, Jim.
So you told us coming in here, you're originally from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was born and raised on Long Island in a suburban home with two parents that didn't drink and didn't drug, but they had their isms.
Mm-hmm.
And I started off at the races as soon as I found that I could change the way I felt.
Sure.
I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
So,
Junior high school?
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I went to private school. My parents worked real hard to put us in a upscale school, and I didn't want to be there because my mom wanted me there. But I got in for my grades and skated along until I found the people that helped me feel different than I felt in my own skin. It was pretty cool.
So how's the transition from New York to here? How does that happen to Louisiana?
Well, I turned 19 in basic training in the Air Force.
Wow.
I just want to say I was getting loaded in basic training. I found a way to do that.
Wow. Wow, that's actually impressive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you still had to achieve certain milestones, right? In order
Oh, yeah.
And you, okay.
I did. And by the time I was in for 10 years, I was ready to get out because I was in lust with another alcoholic up in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked to be transferred to North Dakota, and they told me no because I just made another rank, and I had to stay I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and at Nellis Air Force Base, where I drank a lot and gambled a lot. And when they told me I couldn't leave, I just got out of the Air Force and moved up to North Dakota. And when that was gone, you don't stay in North Dakota when you're not in love. That's the first thing you got to remember there. And I moved down here with my best friend from Nellis. So and I've been here for 32 years.
Wow.
And I love it.
Did they have Phil F's picture at the Nellis in Vegas?
Well, I didn't go
was
to
there like
AA
a
in
shrine to
Nellis.
Phil F? Shout out to Phil. I know he's probably listening, but
That went through my mind as well.
yes,
I did not go to AA in
the
Nellis.
fish population has improved in Nevada since he left years ago. That's all I'm going to say.
But he was stationed at Nellis, I believe,
He was
whenever.
stationed at Nellis. I'll tell you, the most wonderful thing about Nellis was I learned how to fish at Lake Mead and got my passion there.
Huh. And now they're finding all those bodies in the... Isn't that crazy?
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's drying up.
Apparently, since Matt hasn't been working as much,
He studies serial
he
killers.
stays abreast of local
You know, a lot
news.
of people work on self-improvement. I just watch stuff about serial killers. That's what I do, so I
It's
rot
a
my
big
brain.
lake. Lake Mead is a big
Lake Mead is a
reservoir.
huge lake.
Yeah, so it's dried up this year because of the drought, and it's coming down, and they're finding barrels with people in them where the mob threw them in there in the 60s, and they're like, oh, here's a barrel, So a
Hope
lot of
Matt's
these
not
folks-
giving away any secrets on this podcast.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with any of the
See
barrels. I
some
don't know
black
anything.
sedans show up here
Are
in a
you saying
minute.
barrels? Like,
Like 55 gallon drum.
Like the Dahmer barrel.
Yeah, like they're sticking them in, probably a little cement. Don't ask me how I know. Dropping them in the water.
So, Jane, tell us about your first drunk.
Had to be at 12 years old, right? In New York.
I was maybe even younger than that. I was at my brother went to sleepaway camp, and all the adults were sleeping. It was family visitation day, weekend, and they were smoking cigarettes and drinking little tiny Budweiser 7-ounce. I think they first came out, so that's 1970.
Yeah.
And my dad let me have one, and my mom gave me a cigarette. And on the way home, they had to pull over so I could barf my brains out. And you would think that would tell me not to do it again. But my dad would have people over for meetings, and my job was to make them their drinks. And my biggest memory is trying every one of the drinks before I gave them to him. And that should have been a clue right then and there. I really like scotch and rye. And today, just the smell of them make me sick as a dog.
Did you say in rye?
Rye,
Oh,
R-Y-E.
yeah.
My mom would give us rye if we had a toothache to put on our gums. And that's where I learned to like the taste of rye.
Oh, okay. I was just clarifying. So I was like, I don't think I've ever
Heard of rye?
seen it.
Well, I mean, there's a song. What's that
Whiskey
song?
and-
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not something that you just go and buy at the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can?
Yeah, you can. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I've never seen it.
I can't even remember a name brand. I know the Scotch whiskey was Dewar's.
Yeah.
My dad's drink was Dewar's. When he drank, I mean, he drank very rarely, but I remember he drank Dewar's and water. My mom drank Dewar's and soda, or the opposite.
Okay.
I never drank, but that's what I drank because I made them their drinks when they did drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is actually. I'm just had to look it up. There's a rye whiskey. Yeah.
I guess I just always went straight to the beer. So,
I didn't like the taste of beer because every time I drank a beer, I'd throw up.
I did that with Old Milwaukee's Best.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So did everyone in Milwaukee.
Old Milwaukee.
I mean, just one sip. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I worked at a lacrosse camp on the weekends for my dad, and the guys were all college players, and they always had coolers full of beer, and they'd give them to me. I was 13, 14.
Yeah.
And I remember always going off in the corner and throwing them up. So I swore I'd never drink them again. And when I came in here, Bud Light Long Necks Ice Cold were my favorite drink. That and Jack Daniels.
When you got to AA,
Yeah.
that was
well,
your favorite was JD and Bud Ice or Bud Long
Yeah.
Necks Cold.
Or, well, I really liked the daiquiris you could drive through and buy.
Now, can you do that in the other states you lived in?
Yeah.
You could.
No, you couldn't drive through and buy daiquiris.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
I loved it. Because on Tuesdays it was 2 for $1. My girlfriend and I would get the quart size ones and drive to the next daiquiri place and buy another one.
Which was literally in the same parking lot, probably around here.
No, we'd have to we'd have to go over a ways because we had to drink what we had. So you had to have a far enough drive to get it drunk.
Yeah.
Daiquiris down here don't play either for anybody that's listening that thinks, oh, this is a little. No, these are pretty hardcore.
Especially when
down
you start
here.
getting into the double and triple shots.
Yes.
Couple shots of tequila.
Yes. It gets serious quick.
I'm
Yeah.
that girl that dances on the table and shoots out the lights, and Jose Cuervo.
Jane.
Jane and I
love
were
it.
the same age. We probably would have met up in some of the places because I was like that too. It was always a big party. We had to burn it down, you know.
We had to burn it down.
Yep, for sure. So you wound up here, and it's weird how we hear a lot of people tell their story, and you were 11, 12 years old, your first drink, and you almost automatically, because I was that way, I drank alcoholically immediately. And was it when you tried that first drink, was you were just like, this is a game changer?
And I didn't like it because I was throwing up.
Right.
I was the game changers. I'm never doing this again.
I got you. I got you.
You know? Yeah.
But something,
Oh, I always wanted to change the way I felt.
sure.
And I knew something would get me there. And it was usually alcohol was on every corner, no matter what town, except when I lived in Little Rock. We had to travel to another part of. I lived in Jacksonville, Arkansas, and there was no alcohol there except on the base. And the base, you could buy a fifth of JD for about $4 or $5. This was 79, 80, so we're talking a long time ago. But I could drink a whole fifth by myself. I never shared. I'd share my beer, but I wouldn't share my JD. I never woke up with a hangover. And my first hangover was a killer. And I was about 21 with my first real hangover. So I stopped drinking JD and I switched to, I think it was vodka.
Yeah.
Or maybe it would gin or tequila. It was always something else. Once I got sick on one booze, I'd drink another booze.
And our alcoholic self never says, maybe I should just stop drinking.
drinking.
No,
Right.
no, I'll find something that doesn't make me as sick, you know.
And it's funny, I was stationed at 4 bases in the Air Force, and every base I got in trouble for my attitude. Never once did they look at my drinking or my other party favors. Never once. And I ended up partying with 2 of the shrinks they sent me to, my commander sent me to.
And that's we get military people on here, and I hear a lot of my son's in the Army now, and he's told me some stuff about being there and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, is it military wise? They just kind of, as long as you're not, you know, stealing a plane or something, do they pretty much just let you do what you're going to do? Or
Well, back when I was in, yes, I don't believe that's as prevalent as it used to be, but my supervisors were all Vietnam War vets.
Yeah.
So they were all heavy duty into everything that they could possibly do. So we didn't get in trouble. We just couldn't show up drunk. I worked on the flight line on C-130s, and we could not show up drunk. I showed up extremely wasted one night, and my boss confronted me. I said, I haven't had a thing to drink, which was the truth. And he couldn't do a thing to me because I didn't lie to him.
Wow. So about what age, just roughly what age was this we're talking about, the military?
19 to 29.
Oh, 10 years.
10 years, 1 month, and 1 day.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I didn't realize your military career was that long.
Yeah.
And so the last place you served, was that here
No, that was in Vegas.
in Vegas? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I went up to Minot for 2 years on my own. And then I moved down here on my own, which nobody would believe.
Yeah. So how did the geographical change?
Work.
Well, let's go back to Minot.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you got out of the military and went to Minot. Mm-hmm. Was you employed?
I went to college. I let the VA send me to college for 2 years.
Okay.
And the first year I was rocking and rolling, doing pretty good. But the second year, I knew I married the guy, knowing I should have married him. I married the guy after living with him a year, and 7 months later we were getting a divorce because he started drinking again, and he was commanded by the commander never to drink alcohol again because he had 3 DUIs. And I knew about the 3 DUIs when I got out of the Air Force and moved up there because I didn't think I had a drinking problem. I didn't think I had any problems, but I was just a sick Al-Anon. And thank God for Al-Anon. I'm going to shout out to Al-Anon right now because that's what got me into AA.
really,
Yeah.
So that was your first introduction was Al-Anon.
Right.
Okay.
I'd go to AA meetings with Stan and sit in an Al-Anon meeting that was downstairs and all the smoke and everything. It was
remember that.
in the basements. Oh, my God, it was crazy. But I started to learn that it was somebody else's fault, not mine.
yeah.
And I wasn't drinking a lot back then. And I got really heavy into church. But it didn't stop me from going to the bar just before I left Minot to say goodbye to some friends and get hit over the head with a beer bottle. And I still have a scar on the back of my head. Got hit on the head with a beer bottle and kept on walking. Stopped at the bouncer and told him, if you don't call the police, I will. He said, I'll call the police. And I kept on walking, never talked to the police or anything. Had someone pull the glass out of my head.
Oh, it's stuck in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah. And
That's a real deal.
That normally does happen, actually. I've had to pull it out of somebody else. Yeah.
yeah, it's that. But I knew I was coming down here to live with my best friend and her husband. And I brought my 2 cats with me.
Had you ever been here before?
I came to visit
Okay.
once, and I thought I'd never come back again.
Yeah.
And I prayed about it, and I will tell you this, it's kind of a crazy experience, but I heard God say, you're going to Shreveport, Bossier. And I said, no, I'm not. And then I heard God say, don't ask me if you don't want my opinion. and I was making breakfast for a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I knew they weren't talking to me. And I picked up the phone and called Marty and said, I'm coming. And they literally had just finished rearranging their spare bedroom for me. And I had never said I was coming.
Wow.
You know, I get chills when I think about it. I came down here and went straight to LSUS and went to college full time. And I was a very good girl. I didn't date. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. And then I got in a car accident. And I picked up a 6-pack of beer. And the next day I met who is now my husband, who had just started being in treatment. I said, you don't drink at all? He says, no, I can't drink. So, of course, I asked him if he'd smoke pot. And he said, well, they didn't tell me I couldn't do that.
Is your current husband, Jane?
Todd,
Yeah.
you're the man, Todd.
We wasn't going to say his name.
Well,
Yeah,
we can go
Todd.
last names.
I will shout out to Todd. We've been married 30 years. We just celebrated 30.
Wow.
Congratulations.
See,
That's
now,
awesome.
when I picture in my head and Jane's telling me all this stuff, she's talking about her history and, meeting. And I'm thinking in my head, like, early 2000s, but realistically, 30, you've been married 30 years. So the whole Minot thing had to be.
That was back in 89 to 91.
Yes.
I moved down here, met Todd in 92, and married him in 93 because I don't take a lot of time between marriages.
Yeah.
This is number 3 for me. So
Did we miss one in there somewhere?
Well, my first one I married an alcoholic when I was 25. I didn't get married till I was 25, and I married him, and we stayed married 17 months. And then we got divorced, and then I got married to Stan in 90, and divorced him in 91. Then I met Todd, I divorced him in, I don't know.
What was the first one? Where was that at?
That was in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
There has not been a lot of the country you have not covered.
No, I've covered the country.
Yeah.
And I love it here. Yeah, I've been all over the country. I've been to Korea. And I would say Korea was the most intense partying that I did.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because that's all you did. That's all you did was drink. And I showed up at work drunk many a time. But back then, everybody showed up.
And this was the military, though.
Yeah, I was in the military. So, and I love it. I do not regret one day that I was in the Air Force, but I have not regretted one day that I got out.
Mm-hmm.
So you hear God's voice, and
God's
you end up
voice,
back
and I moved
here.
down here, and I'm a real good girl until I meet Todd a year later. And then we just started off in the races, and we got married. And we were married 6 years when he got fired from a job for being an angry person. And I told him we couldn't support our habit because by then my drinking was sporadic because he didn't drink. I've never seen Todd drink. And we've been together over 31 years. So that to me is a true blessing. But we were definitely doing other things.
Other things.
And I knew we couldn't support our habit, so I told him I was going back to AA. My first experience in AA was in 96 when I left an Al-Anon meeting because the women were bitching, and that is not cool to me to listen to a bunch of people bitch because it's our responsibility to deal with ourselves. Ha, ha, ha.
You went back to AA here, though.
Yeah.
Where at?
Here. This is at Highland Club.
Okay.
I left an Al-Anon meeting and walked into the speaker meeting, and I heard a guy telling my story. And it freaked me out. And this was November of 96. I got my first Desire chip. By February 1st, I was off to the races again. But by March 1st, this is of 97, I had to come back into AA. But I wasn't an alcoholic, I was an addict. So I could not be honest at all because I never thought myself an alcoholic. When I came back in 2000, because I didn't have the money to not be in AA was my attitude. I read the big book. Oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. Oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. I had no idea, absolutely no idea that I was an alcoholic. And then I started thinking about when I was 10, 12, and I drank my first beer and swore I'd never do it again. And drank my next beer and swore I'd never do it again. I'm an alcoholic, and I love being an alcoholic because this program works. AA works because I'm an alcoholic.
So I did this, but let me ask you, and I think everybody does this because we all have friends in here and we talk about the way we came in, but I did the same thing. I went to treatment for other substances. Okay. And then found out I was also an alcoholic. I didn't think that was the problem at all. And
Same here.
right. So what was your image? Did you have an image in your head of like, that's an alcoholic over there, but I'm not one? You know, did you have a thing of like, if I got there, I would be, you kind of.
A lot of my best friends were alcoholics. That, you know, the party favors were just second nature to them. Their main thing was alcohol, and that was definitely not me. Couldn't possibly be me. I mean, that totally is the truth. And I had a sponsor named Daphne who passed in 2010, but she and I were identical, and she had 10 years sober when she started sponsoring me, and we were attached at the hip. And I tell everybody, she said, Jane, jump. And I said, how high and on who? I didn't question it. I wanted to be just like her, which was sober. And she just kept telling me, read the big book, read the big book, read the big book. And Carl Haddon, who unfortunately he's gone now, and he spent 30 years of his life trying to get sober. His dad died with 50-something years.
His dad was Dick Haddon.
Dick Haddon founded the Koala Club. And I sat down next to Carl. I met him in 97. So I sat down next to him in 2000 and said, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm an addict. And I don't think AA is going to work, but I'm here. And he told me to shut up, take the cotton out of my ears, put it in my mouth, and listen. He didn't use those words.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard Carl cuss before. And so I just went, okay. And Phil Foley, Phil F., followed me out to my car, and he met me in 97. And he grabbed my arm real hard. You know how Phil is.
Yeah.
And he said, relapse is not an option. And I have never forgotten those words from Carl and from Phil. They, and I tell them to my sponsees, I tell them to anybody that listens to me, relapse is not an option. You don't have to go back out there and see if it's any better, because it's not. I did come in, I did go back out, and it was not any better.
And I'm glad you said that, but something that I just want to repeat so everybody hears, because we're hoping, this is for people that maybe are trying to figure this out, right? And coming in here, I love what you said about your sponsor, and you did everything your sponsor told you to do. That's so important. And like me working with guys, they do that for about a week, and then they just disappear into, and I was the same way. I had to just do whatever I was told, not think about it, not try to reason it out. Just, this is what I need to do. And it went against all of my nature to do most of that stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
I became teachable for the first time
There you go.
in 40 years. I became teachable. I found something that I wanted. And the first thing Daphne had me do, and I tell this to all my sponsees, and they don't do it, I can't make them do it, is write down the reason why you can stay sober, that you will not go back out over. And I had to carry it she gave me a little prayer box, and I had to write real tiny, and I kept it in my prayer box around my neck for years. And I tell them, write something down, and they'll write a big elaborate letter. I'm like, no, just one sentence. And it can't be your children. It can't be your house. It can't be your husband. It can't be your job. My answer was my self-respect, because I had lost it, because I couldn't stay sober. And I knew I couldn't stay sober without Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think that's why I've stayed, because I gave something else the power, and it brought me back to my God. And I think that's the most important thing I can say. When I came in, I was already a believer in a higher power. And for a long time in my life, I lived for that higher power. But alcohol and drugs became a higher power. And every night I'd go to bed leading up to February 24th and say, God, if you get me through tonight, I'll never do this again. The foxhole prayer that so many people say they've said. But I promise you, I said it every single night while I'm throwing up, because I threw up every single night over what I was ingesting. And the next day I'd wake up and do it again. And that is like insane. So when I had to read the first 2 steps and it told me I was insane, I was like, that's me. I am insane. because I keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I remembered from 97 that that's what Alcoholics Anonymous told me was the definition of insanity.
And that's, yeah. And there's so many people that I've come into contact with, and myself included, that, you know, when you're in the throes of that feeling, that bad feeling, you know, where you just, you know, and you go, oh God, you know, I'll do anything to stop. I'll do anything to stop. And then you know, it leaves your body and you get through it. And then all of a sudden I go right back to it.
It's so strange.
Just
the denial.
Well, I think that's part of the disease. You know,
Absolutely.
Tell ourselves we're okay now. It's okay to move on,
But to the point of just like, I don't have a problem. Like,
Yeah.
I had capillaries bursting all over my body, and I was peeing brown, but I don't know what that was.
Goes
What
with
could
those
that
big words
possibly
again.
be?
caterpillars bursting all over.
But seriously, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I worked with a guy this week, Mike, and he said, I want my place looking pristine. And I don't know big words, you know, and I thought maybe that was an exotic dancer. I didn't know what pristine was. So I had
thought
to
it was
ask
a
him.
car that goes ran
I mean, I
over
didn't
people in
know
the
what that
movies.
was, so, I'm with Mike on that. But, you know, too, like I did step 2 at a meeting last night, and we had a step study, and it was on step 2. And here's what's funny to me as we talk about we're turning our will and our life over to the care of God. But all that time and all that crap that happened before, God was still caring for us even when we hadn't turned it over. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. Like, there's no way I'm sitting here today without him going, here's an idiot. He's going to keep screwing up, and I'm not going to do this again. And then I do it again and do all this crazy stuff. But yet we're sitting here, and
that's a miracle.
Isn't that just, that's the
God's
part that
grace.
blows me away. It's like he
Helen,
was watching
I
out this whole time. Everybody that was put in my path to get to this point, you know, and sometimes, and I wonder, I'll go, why would God do that? Like he had no reason to step in my life. I mean, I hadn't given him any reason to go, you know, this guy may work out or something, but I don't know. I just been thinking about that the last couple of days, but.
And the readings in the 24-hour day have been on grace
Mm.
the last couple of days. And I'm like, it took me 23 years to learn that I had to extend other people grace the same as God has extended to me. And that came from an earth person reminding me that she extended grace to people that had wronged her. So now when I read about grace, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is just such enlightenment.
And you know what I had a hard time with that was I'm very easy to give other people grace, but not myself.
No.
I'm real hard on myself, and you know, I have to learn to treat myself the same way I treat other people. You know,
Absolutely.
Goes back to that self-respect and all that kind of stuff. So,
I love it.
well, so you're in the Highland Club. You're starting. You got your Desire Chip, and so how did that go in early sobriety?
Well, it didn't go very well because my husband was still doing his thing. And it didn't take me long because I couldn't find a sponsor because I asked anybody and everybody, and they're all like, not touching me with a 10-foot pole.
Oh,
And because I was a very angry, crazy woman 20 years ago. That's just the truth. And I know, not that I'm a lot better, but I am somewhat better today. But I wasn't working a program. I was going to meetings, but I didn't have any idea what I was doing. So it didn't take me long to get back out there. And when I went back on March 1st of 97, I got a sponsor. And I had her for 6 months. And after 6 months, she fired me because I made her feel bad when I talked to her because I wouldn't work the steps.
Mm-hmm.
I was too scared to work the steps because I didn't understand them. When you don't understand something, you avoid them, right?
yep.
And even when I came back in 2000 and started working the steps with Daphne, the first 3 were cool. But the 4th step, I just vomited it on a piece of paper and read it to her. And she's like, okay. And I never felt that was a real 4th step because I knew I didn't do the columns, but I didn't understand the columns. And it wasn't until 2004, 4 years sober, that I did my first columned 4th step
Like out of the book.
right out of the big book. because I did not understand that part of the big book. For everything I understood in the big book, I did not understand the fourth step. Understood the fifth step, vomit all over something and just pouring my heart out. But I tell everybody everything and anything. I don't hide anything that I've done. So that didn't make any sense to me either. And when I finally got a new sponsor after you were talking about Anne, and she was like, you haven't done a column 4 step. You're doing one on May 4th. And by golly, the steps we took by Joe McCune
Yeah.
changed my life because I understood how to read the big book after reading that book. And she's the one that gave it to me. Carol O gave me that book and said, you will do the 5th step on May 4th. I've never forgotten that. Now I give my sponsees a date and say, you will do it on this day. And lo and behold, they're still sober today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's enlightening.
And that's one we tend to drag around and kind of.
And there's nothing fearful about it. It's the most cleansing, wonderful thing I've ever done.
Sure.
And since then, I've done quite a few 4 steps. In fact, I owe my new sponsor, I've had her for 5 years, a 4-step, 5th step. Yeah.
So you got that rocking. Were you going Koala Club? Were you going all around?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
When I came in 2000, I made 4 meetings a day, every day. My first 90 days, I had like 145 meetings.
Wow.
And I worked full time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
It
just
takes
had a
what it
boss that
takes.
let me off.
Yeah. It takes what it takes, though, you know. We all go to treatment centers and we go in places like that, and the most common thing, and I get, is people coming over and they go, we're telling them the same thing everybody's told us, you know, go to meetings, and they go, man, you know, you really mean 90 meetings in 90 days? And I'm like, minimum, you know, that's a minimum. Like, I did more than that. It takes what it takes, and it's weird at the lack of willingness to do the sobriety part of it as hard as they did the drinking and using.
90 meetings in 90 days sounds almost impossible when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Daphne
right.
told me I drank every day.
There you go, right there.
I would make a meeting every day, and I would put $1 in the basket every time it went by me. If I went to 4 meetings a day, that was $4. And I was broke. I mean, Todd wasn't working. $1 went in the basket every time it passed me. And I tell my sponsors that too. I said, no excuses. You used every day. You drank every day. You put money in. You're drinking that coffee. You putting $1 in every day.
James used to be the facilitator for a treatment center here in Shreveport.
He's not anymore?
No, I am. He turned it over to me.
Okay.
I'm the dude that gets people there.
Okay.
But James did it forever. He's awesome. But every year around Christmas, he'd go, hey, any chance? And I go, absolutely, I can do it. It would be on Christmas Eve. I've done it on Christmas Day, all that. And it would always be me by myself or me and James. And you couldn't get anybody else to do it. And James goes, why you always do it on the holidays? I know you got kids. I said, man, I got jacked up on Christmas just like I did every other day.
Yeah.
We drank and used every single day. So, you know, they need to hear something as much as I need to be there.
Yeah.
So,
If they're stuck in treatment on a holiday, they need to hear the word.
and it's so funny to me to go in there and they go, thank you for coming. And I'm like, no, thank you for being in here. Like, I'm glad I could come in here, you know? So
I didn't go through treatment. I don't have that experience, but I take meetings anytime I'm asked, I go into a treatment center. And it just amazes me, the people that are sitting in there every time I go in. Like, this is my 5th time here.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what part do you not understand?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 6 myself. Yeah.
You did 6.
Yeah.
Something Todd's tired of hearing me tell people is the lead singer for Three Dog Night went through 27 treatments before he got sober. And when he died sober.
Wow.
That's cool.
27 treatments. The last one, they found him in a cardboard box on the streets of L.A.
Wow.
You know, and Three Dog Nights from my generation.
Yeah, I was wondering if these kids remember who 3 Dog Night are.
I know who it is. They were before me. But I
Who
do
you
know
calling a
who it is.
kid?
They were right after 2 Dog Night. Just messing with you, man.
I had to add for a minute, Mike. Don't make me do that. I had to add numbers.
Something I've done in my sobriety is for 10 years, I took a meeting in the CCC, to the women in CCC. And there is one woman here that that's still active in AA. That still every time she sees me, she comes up and hugs me and says, "You carried AA into the jail, and I heard you." And she's been sober about 12, 13 years now. And that's always exciting to see her. I haven't seen her in a while. But there's a couple of ladies that I brought into CCC with me, and they see people that tell them, yeah, I remember you carrying the word of AA into CCC.
That makes me happy.
What's
Yeah.
really cool is like there's a gentleman now who's doing really good, but to be at our club and I go there a lot. I go to treatment stuff a lot, and it's come and go. You know, it's a 30-day deal. I may see them twice while they're there, maybe one time. You meet different loads of people every time you go, but some of them will be sitting in there and they come up 6 months later and they're like, "Hey, yeah, I was at or a year later," and they're getting a year chip and they're like, "I remember you came in there," and I'm like, "Really? I came in there when you were there?" Like, I don't even know, and then now they're my friends and didn't even know that we had, and that's awesome.
That's a warm fuzzy.
It is.
Well, there's a couple people that are currently in AA. One at the Highland Club, and one at the Koala Club that came in when I was at Brentwood. And they would bring, and I thought they were such dorks. I remember thinking, man, these dorks are just, these guys just don't know. They just don't know. They're never gonna have fun again. I'm gonna spend 2 weeks in here. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna go back and have some fun. One guy actually, he celebrated his 9th birthday at Brentwood when I was in there. For my very last trip. And I remember I remember thinking, I'll never see 9 years. That's just, that's impossible to have 9 years. Why this guy's talking to me, I don't have a clue. I actually, going into a lot of these things, you already have, I did, self-esteem issues. I'm not good enough to whatever it is. And then when you get into rehab and you're not even good enough for the drunks that come and talk because they've got more recovery, And actually what I was doing is thinking about myself too damn much, right? Mm-hmm. But the truth is, I remember this guy, and I think he still comes around a lot. Apparently, he obviously has about 21, 22 years. He ran the central office for a little while, or he was high up in the central office for a little while. And tall, skinny guy, cowboy boots. But I think his name is Lane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had his 9th birthday in my very last treatment that I was there. And, but he's not one of the ones I thought was a dork. But there was a couple, and I'm friends with them now. And come to find out, they're just not. They're not dorks. I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was wrong about so much.
Right, absolutely.
Let me tell you something about Lane. I saw him yesterday. He's now going to be the acting president of the Bridge House.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his girlfriend, I was her first sponsor, and she now runs central office.
Okay.
Wow.
And who is she?
Lisa M.
Oh, Lisa.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know Lisa. She calls me quite often when we owe her money.
Mike.
Actually.
With that New Orleans accent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's from down there.
Yeah.
Her dad was a pharmacist.
Oh.
That would have been trouble for me.
You're right.
Trouble for
I'd
her.
have gotten the family business. I'm just saying, Back, I'm glad I wasn't, I did good enough on my own. So,
Yeah.
Well, you, the thing I keep hearing, and I want to keep reiterating is you were taking suggestions and then passing that same thing on. What you learned, and I think, like I work with people, Jill, Mike, we do it the way we were taught. And that's what I tell my guys. It's like, this is exactly how I did it. It's no different. If you're wanting whatever that may be from me, this is what I did to do it. And it's as simple as, if you do those things and you're willing enough, it will work. And you did it a little different than I did. Mike, we've talked about it. We all kind of have a little different way, but it's effective as long as you're willing to put the willingness in. So
Yeah, I tell anyone that will listen to me, if you want what I have, you'll do what I do.
sure.
And that's really the way it works.
Yeah.
Tried to do it my own way for many years. Didn't work. Just didn't work.
No.
If it would have, I wouldn't be sitting here right,
Right.
now. You know.
I mean, I got a guy the other day. He's on his 8th treatment visit. He's fixing to get out. He's in like a, not work release, but like he's working, but he's still there right now. And he's like, yeah, that 90 meetings in 90 days. He goes, I think about 2 meetings a week. I'm good. And I said, I know. And that's why you're on your 8th treatment center, and you can't stay out very long, and you go back because you think is the problem. And I mean, I just laid it on him, and I was like, hey man, these are the facts. So you got to change what you're doing, you know, but it's that he's not even left the treatment center, and he's already in his mind,
How he's going to.
I think I'm going to just hit a meeting a week, you know, or 2, maybe, you know. I'm like, man, you got to attack this thing. You can't do that. So,
Well, there's a saying, I've never been in a bad AA meeting. I've been in meetings I don't want to be in because of my head space, but not because of what's being said at the meeting.
sure.
But again, Daphne said the 5:30 was my home group for 2 years. I was there every day, 7 days a week. Todd and I missed one weekend when we flew to North Carolina for my brother's birthday. That was it. That was the only weekend we missed. Christmas, Thanksgiving, we were there at 5:30. There wasn't a question about it. We didn't have a choice. I didn't feel I had a choice because I wanted this so badly. So,
And there's just something about being connected.
yeah.
Just always being connected. And that's one of the mysteries of AA I just can't explain. But when I start to lose my connection, you know, recently I moved, and I started feeling like I started losing my connection. Well, instead of going out and looking for a fix, I start rattling through my head. First thing I do is go through everything I can do to keep from going to a meeting, because I don't want to go to meetings with strangers. And then finally I have to rationalize it. Go to a meeting. You just have to not think you go to a meeting, and that's years down the line. You know, I've started going to a meeting, and I do it, and I want to stay connected. You know, whatever it is, you know, I just have to stay connected.
And being, like you said, Mike, when you get in there and you find a place that's your place and your people, you grow with those people, you know. And I've gone into meetings where 5 years in now, there's certain days of the week I'm just going because it's that day of the week, and I know where I'm going to be ahead of time mentally. So I'm just like, you're not going to like this Friday, but you're going anyway. And then I go. But what happens is I'm around people that I see all the time, every day, and they come up and they go, man, let me tell you what, this happened with my wife, and all of a sudden I spend 20 minutes listening to them on something that's going on in their life, and I leave that meeting and go, my whole attitude's changed. I haven't thought about my problems, and I just have a different perspective on it, you know, and that just comes from being around my same people every day,
Right.
or as much as possible, you know.
Yesterday was Unity Day
Yeah.
at the Serenity Club, and there was, in my opinion, a poor turnout. From Coleman telling me it was packed last year, and this year it wasn't a lot. But I was there from 10 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. I'm sunburnt. Didn't think about that. And it was beautiful weather out, and Coleman R., who's been on this podcast, we were talking, and I was at a meeting Sunday. I was at a meeting Monday. I went to 2 on Tuesday. I went to 1 on Wednesday. I went to 1 on Thursday. I did not go to 1 on Friday because I was just so tired from work. And Coleman's like, you're 23 years sober. Are you going to that many meetings? I said, so are you, Coleman? And he's like, yeah, I guess I am. I mean, we don't even think about, I'm not like bragging that I went to all those meetings, but I didn't even think about how many meetings I was going to. I just had a sponsor I needed to do the step with. I had to hear someone talk. Had to go to the GSR meeting,
Sure.
so why not make a 5:30 before I go to the GSR meeting? I mean, AA is my way of life. I can't imagine any other way of life because I've lived other ways of life, and they got me a seat in AA.
And that's what's cool about this program too. And that going back to the treatment centers, people come up and they go, how are you going to that many meetings and stuff? And I go, sometimes it's not the meeting. I have a responsibility for something involved with the program that I just go sit at the meeting, and I go, well, they got a 5:30. I'll meet you at 6:30. And then we sit down and talk. So it just becomes a part of your life, and it has to in order to be successful with this. You know, you just have to. It just has to be a part of your life. So
Right. I'm working with a lady right now who's been dry since '08. And she came up to me about 6 months ago and said, "Why are you so happy?" I don't know.
Why are
I
you
don't
so happy?
know.
And she says, "Well, I want what you have." And I said, "Here's my phone number." And she called me for about 2 months sporadically. And she finally said, "Do you sponsor anybody?" And now her big thing is she doesn't hug. She showed up at Unity Day yesterday with her daughter and her granddaughter. And I told her, I said, "I know you're not a hugger, but I'm giving you a big hug today." And her daughter's just cracking up, going, "You'll never make my mother a hugger." And I said, "You're wrong. I will."
We were talking beforehand, and she's been on here as well, and somebody that I'm just super proud of and surprised about in that vein is Michelle. She's been on here, but I'm telling you, I've seen her come in when she came in, and she goes to a lot of meetings, and she has worked through some major stuff. But I was listening to her the other day on the podcast, and I've been watching her here lately. There's such a change that's happened with her. And I'm sure she'll tell you she's got other stuff. I mean, we were talking about some stuff the other day, but I looked at her and I said, "You do know you're like 90% of the way away from where you were when you walked in here a couple of years ago."
Amazing.
It's amazing. Even I was listening to her on the podcast, and I was like, man, she's come a long way. And that's what keeps me coming around, is when I can see others that, you know, get this thing and they start doing that type stuff and living that way and actually enjoying life. So our 5th podcast members up here, Billy the cat, is on the table, but checking everybody out.
She jumps on the table and starts dancing when she gets tequila too.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, Michelle has came tremendously, came a long way. Even since our last podcast,
Absolutely.
the last one that she was on. Was you there when she was on it? That day?
Yeah.
John Pay. Yeah.
Have y'all seen Dickie lately? She looks amazing.
Oh, that's another one right there. I saw her the other day and hugged her, and I just told her, I was like, "Man, look at you." It's the Jill saying, "Look at you, just look at you." That's what Jill always said. You know,
Classic.
she has just took this thing and ran with it. You know,
She looks amazing.
and we always, I get caught up in my own junk, you know, and then I'm kind of like, well, I'm just, this isn't going the way, you know, all this junk in my head. But then I see Dickie or I see Michelle, and I'm watching them, and I'm sitting there going, wow. And I look at how far they've gone, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, you know, a little hope. And
It's the podcast
well,
magic.
I don't know if it's they do the dang thing, and that's what they have in common too. They have sponsors, they do their steps, they go to meetings, they help others, they do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple, you know. We just have to do those few things we're supposed to do, and it works out pretty good.
So, Jane, how's life now?
Happy, joyous, and free. I love it. I've got a job that I love. I have a job I get to go to. I've got a home that I love. I got a husband that I love, and he loves me. It's not just one-sided. Just celebrated 30 years of marriage, which is, I thought I'd be dead by 60, much less have a 30-year marriage at 63. I just never thought that would happen to me. And life is good. And I'm so immersed in AA that AA is good.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I've got a great team of women around me and men, because I've sponsored men too and get a lot of advice from men. I don't have a problem with that. It used to be I only want one thing from a man. Now I don't. That's changed. You know, and that's a gift of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Just, I have received so many gifts. Jill, I met Jill when she was transitioning out of a job, and I was transitioning into that job, and now neither one of us are even dealing with that anymore, and that's like amazing. Life is good. I'm a happy camper.
Awesome.
Well, anything anybody want to add?
I think I'm good. What about you, Jane? Anything?
Good. I've really enjoyed being here with you guys.
Oh,
Working
well.
with the voices I hear every week.
And this is how we do it right here.
This
Just
is pretty cool.
Jill and her cat, and me and Matt sitting here with it. We got a couple of shout outs. Have either one of y'all got text or emails over the past since we recorded last?
Not lately.
Okay, well, I haven't either. So nothing in the mailbag, Jill's mailbag. And I got to remind everybody, we do have an email address though. It's G&B Bossier. That's G&B BOSSIER @gmail.com. And there's a voicemail line you can call in on, area code 985-377-4816. You're more than welcome to call, leave a voicemail, and we will play it on the air. The other day I got excited. I thought somebody, apparently whoever had the number before me hasn't paid their Orkin bill or something. So I got excited. I got home, had like a 4-minute voicemail I was going to get to edit through, and because I haven't really got to do that yet.
When you going to pay your roach bill, Mike?
Whenever I looked it up. So it's my work number. So whoever had that number before me was in Mandeville or in Covington. And they hadn't paid their Orkin bill or something, and they're trying to find them. And they even gave their name. I mean, I know the folks' names, but I was really excited whenever I saw it.
Give them a shout out, Mike. Maybe they'll pay them.
Or maybe they'll keep calling me now until they can get a hold of these people with their Orkin thing, which I've had that number for a while. So I can only imagine how old this bill is.
So I do want to say this. This is our 25th episode.
It is.
And Jane, you're awesome for coming on here.
Thank you.
But that's pretty crazy to be 25 episodes for a dude sitting in a treatment center 5 years ago. I didn't mean to do that. Billy was wiggling. But for a guy sitting in a treatment center 5 years ago, to sitting here doing a podcast about recovery,
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. But
Life in recovery is worth it.
it is worth it.
It is.
It's just so different from what I thought it would be. Just didn't imagine doing this kind of stuff. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I gotta remember the countries, all the countries out. We're actually 98.4% of our episodes are played on Spotify, and 1.6 are on another platform, and I do not know what platform. So I'm gonna have to figure that part out too. But we still have listeners in Ireland, the UK, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Australia, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and the UAE.
Nice.
Yep. And then our shout outs as always to we got Michelle, we got Miss Faye, we got Chris C, who listens to every episode. We got Kim, we got Rhonda, we have Drew, we have who is that? Who am I thinking of? Oh, Larry and Judy. Haven't heard much from them. They must be tied up.
She
in
Instagrams me pretty regular. I like that.
Post-marriage bliss. They must be tied up in the post-marriage honeymoon activities that keep people from shouting out to the podcast. No, I'm sure they're doing well. But I haven't heard from them. I haven't heard, not much here recently. And am I forgetting anybody? I sure don't want to forget anybody.
Probably, but
yeah, but we'll mention you in our next episode. So how about that?
I just want to say it was a really sucky week without a Pat.
And that is, I will take full responsibility for that one, and that is on me. I had some work related stuff to do, so hopefully that will not happen again. How about
in Mike's defense, and for you guys that don't know that are out there, he got relocated for work, so it's a 3.5 hour drive to come to Bossier, and this dude is getting up on a Sunday morning at 4 or 5, whatever he gets up, and driving over here to record a bunch of these so we have them available, and I think that's pretty awesome.
No excuses.
No excuses. That's right, Jane. No excuses.
I drank every day.
That's right.
Drank
I would drive 3.5 hours to get some liquor.
We did very often.
If I was drunk, I could drive 6.5 hours to get some liquor.
But I still think that's pretty cool because I could find excuses, is what I'm saying. I could find some,
No
so.
excuses.
All right, so that's about a wrap. We're gonna sign off from Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana. This is the Grouch and the Brainstorm.